everybody. This is Eric with What's in the Box, and we're doing the Authors of Texas AuthorCon 2. And tonight we are joined by E Nigma. And thanks for coming.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, this is exciting. It's cool to meet some new people that are going to be at the event and some new writers. I don't think we've really talked at all before this, so it's going to be really fun to be able to swing by your table. I did see that you have a ton of stuff, so that's really cool, and we'll jump into all that in a little bit. But the opening question we give everybody is Jason, Michael, or Freddie?
I gotta go with Freddie. I mean, the thing about Freddie is you have to sleep, okay? There's no running from him. I know the other ones you can't really run from them too, but I mean to just basically know that a human need is to sleep and to know that he's going to come get you if you fall asleep. I mean, that's the most terrifying thing ever.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm a big Jason guy. I love the Friday the 13th movies, but everybody that has picked Freddy, I can't argue with it. I mean, one and three are masterpieces. Uh,
Yes.
so then on the same vein, are you more vampire or werewolf? Which,
That's a crazy one. I think Twilight kind of screwed me for both of them, to be honest with you. But
right?
if I had to pick, I'd go with the vampire. I mean, I'm a comic fan, so Blade, just him, and the things he does, and not so much Morbius. That movie
Mhm.
kind of tanked, but I would say I would be more of a vampire person if I had to pick one.
Yeah, I know the movie, not great, but the character in the Spider-Man comics have been really good for Mobius,
Yeah.
and I really enjoyed his stuff they put out in the '90s. It
Hmm.
didn't last very long, but I love the fact that Marvel really tried to push hard and give us the darker characters and their own stuff. With Ghost Rider, Mobius, they introduced us to the Darkhold.
Hmm.
So I think all that's really cool. But yeah, you're right. I mean, so you're going to be the first. I don't know what order we're going to release everything in, but you are the first person to say vampire. So
Oh, okay.
that's very cool. It's nice to see something a little different. When a lot of us, I think, lean towards werewolves simply because of the classic transformation, the early '80s movies and things of that nature. So, but yeah, you're right. I never even think of Blade really when I think of vampires, but he is a reason to root for, or at least get interested in a vampire movie because it's fun to watch him kill them. So
Oh yeah, definitely.
yeah, yeah, I love Blade. Blade's great. I'm excited to see what they do. The Marvel's been missing on the last couple movies, but
Hmm.
boy, it's going to be hard for them to screw up Blade. I won't put it past them. I mean, I'm sure they'll try their hardest, but I thought the casting was really cool. I mean, I love Wesley Snipes, so I mean,
Hmm.
to me, it might be one of those things where you can think of, like Harrison Ford is Indiana Jones. Maybe
Right.
the next Blade will be like, well, no, Wesley Snipes is always going to be and only be Blade. But
The
yeah, no,
one
I'm
that they had,
interested to see.
I was about to say the one concern I do have about it is the rumor is it's going to be a PG-13 movie or show
Yeah,
or whatever, and I'm like, well, hey, you gotta keep that rated R. But
yeah, I think
who
so.
knows? Maybe it'll work.
Well, that was so cool about the first Blade. I went into it kind of, I knew Blade, but I didn't know much about what
Hmm.
was going to happen in the movie. And for them to be so, I mean, that movie's just the perfect tone and the right amount of violence and just everything about it was, and it's an R. So I
Hmm.
mean, I think that's what made Blade, the first one, so great.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
100%. I'm with you there. That might be the thing I throw out in future interviews. When we have these chit chats, I might have to bring up Blade because you're right. That is such a cool.
Hmm.
That does give the vampires something to lean on. I think most of us think immediately to Twilight, like you said,
Yes.
and even Interview with a Vampire is still kind of, it just
Hmm.
depends on how much you like Anne Rice. Um,
Hmm.
so as a kid, what was your favorite scary movie?
So, I mean, Nightmare on Elm Street would probably be one, but I'm gonna say this: the one, and I wasn't a kid at the time. I was probably a little older, in my 20s. The one movie that really kind of stuck in my head, and not necessarily because it was scary. I mean, it was scary in its own sense, but it was just the way it was done. It was kind of original at the time. It was Blair Witch,
Oh
and I
yeah.
know a lot of people that, and the reason I guess it was so creepy to me, because initially I thought that it was actually a legitimate documentary. And I remember watching it, and people are like, "Oh, it's not that scary." I'm like, "Yeah, it's not really that scary." And you get to the end and everything, and you cut it off. But again, at that point I thought it was like a real thing. I remember cutting it off, and then wife goes to sleep, and I'm just sitting there like, it just stuck in my head. I don't know what it was about that
No,
movie, but
it's a tremendous ending. It really builds up
yeah.
to that thing, and really, it's a
Hmm.
sucker punch moment. I saw it
Hmm.
in theaters opening night in a packed house, and I think that's the reason I think it's a good movie is because I
Hmm.
was in a theater where the entire theater lost their mind at that last scene. People,
Okay.
so half the theater tried to run out at that point. And so
Yeah.
in my head, it's always this amazing thing, and also it's the first really of its kind. So we haven't been desensitized to the whole phenomenon of found footage. At that time, it was pretty cutting edge, and I still think it holds up.
It does. It does. And I didn't go to theaters to see it. I waited till it hit VHS, and I rented it back in the, kind of date myself Blockbuster days, and rented it. And like I said, me and my wife watched it. I was in my 20s, and it was just one of those movies that was just the way it did it.
Mhm.
It wasn't the typical slasher film or anything like that. This was just a movie, and it really pushed the limit. It's saying that it was, kind of like they were trying to pass it on as a,
Yeah,
like you said, found footage and things like that. So
it was
I
genius
think,
marketing. Because I mean,
yes,
it was the very beginning. A lot of people don't remember that, or the people that discover it in this time period, they can't remember a time when we didn't have internet. And so, I
right.
mean, that was one of the early internet things that really pushed the
Hmm.
envelope. And so, yeah, no, you're right. And the way I'm hearing it when you're explaining it, it's like it almost feels like you found a VHS and you put it in and you watched it. You know what I mean? I could see how that would
Hmm.
be 10 times, more unsettling because it kind of has that feel to it. It doesn't have the
Hmm.
same feel when you're streaming it, because
Right,
you went
right,
to
yeah.
Netflix and picked it, but yeah, thinking about pulling out the VHS, putting it in the thing. Yeah, definitely. I could see how that would be very unsettling.
Hmm.
So are you a big horror fan? Is there anything that's come out now? Is there like a go-to movie that you like to watch?
Um, Not necessarily a big horror fan per se. I mean, I'll kind of dip in and out when I normally it has to be something that people are hyping up, like a
Mhm.
movie, like on the internet there, or Facebook, social media. They're talking about a certain movie, and I just gotta check it out. Like, for example, the movie that I watched that kind of stuck with me now, just recently. Well, not recently, but when it initially came out to streaming and everything, was Get Out. A lot of people were talking
Mhm.
about Get Out. I know it's a strange movie, and when I was first watching it, I was like, "Oh yeah, this is blah blah blah." But as it progressed, and you really start to think of like, "Oh my God, the situation that you would be in." If something like that were to happen in real life, you try to relate it. Now, I'll be honest, as a story writer and a person, like most people that you're going to talk to here, I kind of get into the roles of certain things. So when I'm writing, I get into a role. And so I get involved in the story, put it like that. So that's why I don't really stick with the horror genre too much because I don't
No,
want
I
it
got
to
you.
get in my head.
Well, I got to tell you, I
you know.
love the posters I'm seeing.
Hmm.
Behind you, I can see Homeland and I see Dark Knight, right? And
Hmm.
so,
Yeah.
yeah, no, I'm digging the Dark Knight. I love that movie.
Hmm.
It's a great movie. So, and
Yeah.
yeah, I totally get that. You don't want to if you pull yourself into those characters. I can see how it's
Hmm.
difficult to get out of it if you're constantly doing some sort of horror related things.
Hmm.
Um, so and that's a perfect segue because so what is the genre that you like to write in the most?
So as you said, I got a lot of different books. Matter of fact, I have a total of 23 right
That's
now.
awesome.
I just finished my 24th like a few days ago, so I'm still in the early stages of that. If I had to pick one that I really like, and I only have a couple books out of this right now, it's sci-fi.
Hmm.
I'm a big sci-fi fan, and it's just hard to really break into that crowd with sci-fi because there's just so many books out there, and so you tend to write towards the things that sell the most. But I try to keep it different because that's why I went with the pen name Enigma. Okay, because you really don't know what you're going to get with my writing. It could be a comedy, it could be
Mhm.
a drama, it could be sci-fi, it could be a mystery, it could be a psychological thriller, it could be a multitude of things. So I didn't want to set myself to one genre. I wanted to leave it like, just be flexible. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure. And then it also allows you to enjoy what you're doing. Because
Mm-hmm.
you talk to people that write very specific genres and subgenres, and and they get burned out really quick. Not
Mm-hmm.
everybody wants to write the same story over and over again. So it's really cool that
Right.
you left it open, that you can jump into all these different things, and also let your reader know that they're gonna every book's an adventure, and I think that's really
Mm-hmm.
cool. I mean, we all love the dependable writer that writes the same thing, but
Mm-hmm.
it's nice to be able to know that you have a writer that can um, stretch out and give you something different, but still be familiar enough that you're going to enjoy the style and the way
Mm-hmm.
that the story is presented. I think that's really cool that you do all those different things. I do the same thing. I like to say I'm a horror author, but everything I write, it can be anything. I just finished a Western. I've done Victorian, supernatural stuff. I've done extreme horror. To me, anything and everything is horror. So,
Mm-hmm.
where it's set doesn't bother me, whatever, and that allows me the flexibility to do something a little different, but kind of still be familiar with the audience.
Right.
But you're going to get bored if when I started my Don Texas series, I was worried I would be bored because it's in the same town. But
Mm-hmm.
the way to make that different was I changed the time period every story. So I jump
Mm-hmm.
around, I have one in the 1800s, one in 2002, one in 69 and 78, so I can go and look at different things and have a good time. Do you have so your sci-fi, the one that you're working on, are they a series or are they all like one shots?
Well, it's a series right now. The first one I wrote back, it was when I before I became a published author. I was self-published at the time,
Hmm.
and then I just recently, maybe say last year sometime, came out with the follow-up to it. And it's really the funny thing about it is it's connected, but it's not. In other words, you could read the second book and not know what's happened in the first book. You can read them in any order, so it
Oh,
doesn't
that's
really
great.
matter.
Yeah,
And
that's
so I
awesome.
tried. Yeah, it's kind of like a spinoff to where I wanted it to go to a whole different thing. So just to kind of give it the name of the first book is Danark, and it's heavily influenced. The way I call it is like I don't know if you are a big gamer. I used to be back in my younger days, and my favorite game of all time, the game that actually started me writing, was Final Fantasy VII.
Okay.
And it's basically Final Fantasy VII meets Game of Thrones, so to speak.
Oh,
I
very cool.
really, yeah, I really wanted to do something like that where you didn't know what character, was going to last and things like that. So you know, that was the first book there, and it took me to a place that I just enjoyed, a world that I just enjoyed. And then the follow up book, which came a few years later, was called Danark, A Thief's Tale. And so, like I said, it's a spin-off. It's a character who actually was with the crew in the first one, well, before the first one actually started, and she's on her own adventure. So now we can kind of tie them back together. Eventually, I'm going to write the third one, and I'm going to bring these two crews together for an even bigger threat. And that's my hope. Either 3 to 4 to kind of finish off that series. So these are
Awesome.
kind of little slow burners, but yeah, that's basically the plan anyway.
Yeah, no, that's great because you're expanding the universe and you're giving us
Mm-hmm.
more and more information, but not in a way that makes people, feel like they are pigeonholed into a certain direction. So I think that's cool because you want that flexibility as a reader, and yeah, as a
Mm-hmm.
writer, you want people not to feel like they have to read 37 books to read your newest book. So I think that's cool too. What other genres do you focus on?
Well, my latest book, matter of fact, I have it here. My latest book is called. Well, this is the view copy, but
Oh,
the
sweet.
between wives. And this is a psychological thriller. And honestly, this book came from just a dream I had, to where for some reason, I was a cop and I was raiding some place, shooting up the bad guys and all that. And then we raided the house, and when I walked in, there was nothing in there. And then when I walked out, the same people that I was with, the police force is gone. The one of the policemen that was with me, she's a female. She's dressed in casual clothing. I'm dressed in the tux. Like, what the hell happened? You know. And
Right.
so that's what happens in this first chapter. Basically, there's the raid. He walks in, he walks out. He's trying to figure out what's going on, and he's the world is different, but it's the same. But he's 10 years in the future, supposedly. And so I don't want to give too much of it away because it's really you have to figure out like how did he get here? So he spends a good portion of the time trying to figure out how has he gotten there, and his wife and kids that he had before don't exist in this world. And he's married to the other police officer, female, that was there with him in the raid.
Oh,
So
that's
it's
cool.
just a yeah. So basically, he's trying to figure out where he is, how to get home to his family. He's looking, using all his resources, and his family does not exist. It's not like he got divorced or anything. They never existed at all. So he's really thinking he's in another universe, maybe, or is this a
Yeah. So this
future, or
sounds,
maybe you know.
yeah, I was just say this sounds like it's a ton of great things. You got the psychological
Mm-hmm,
thriller aspect. It sounds like it's got some science fiction. It's
mm-hmm,
got the mystery of it all. So I mean that
mm-hmm.
that sounds very interesting. Um,
And
you
it's
said,
hard. It's really hard. It's really hard to really go over it without giving out some plot points. So
oh
that's
yeah,
why
no,
this
I
book is
totally
always
get it.
hard for me to, you know. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's the latest one that I had released probably about a good couple months ago. So I'm getting a
Very
lot of
cool.
good feedback on it. So I'm happy with it.
Yeah, that's great. Are you have any projects in the works that will be new for Texas AuthorCon, or do you think it's going to be after that event before when you'll have new stuff?
I think it'll be ready by then, but I don't know if it's going to be featured, so to speak, because I
Hmm.
think it's going to be for a different type of crowd. This one is more of a character study. So just to kind of give you a background, I started my writing, process doing like movie scripts and things like that. And so years ago, I used to write a whole bunch of movie scripts trying to break into that industry. Had a couple of scripts optioned, but all that means is it just sits on somebody's table and maybe one day it'll get made, maybe not. You never know.
Hmm.
And so to get the work out, I started transitioning from screenplays and scripts to novels. And so this was a script that I wrote like years ago. And it just dawned on me to really just try to get this character study about a traumatic experience from a woman who is now like let's say a pop star, like let's say Beyonce or somebody like that. But she has this traumatic experience from her childhood that just makes her so vengeful and petty in things that she does. And it's really just trying to get past all that to fall in love. So it's kind of like a love story, so to speak, a romance type story. But yeah, I just finished it like a few days ago. So it may be available, but like I said, I'm not really going to feature it too much in that type of crowd.
Well,
I'm
that's the cool
mainly
thing,
going
and
to
that's
probably
one of the
stick
things
to
that
that.
we're really pushing is that we've
Mm-hmm.
got such a great collection of writers that not everything is going to be towards the darker side. That there's going to be other things there, and that's what I
Mm-hmm.
think is really amazing. I checked out your picture you have with all the books and stuff on your table, and it's just so many amazing different covers and looks like genres and so
Mm-hmm.
I mean this goes to show everybody they come to Texas AuthorCon, you're gonna find something. There's gonna be something in the genre you prefer to read. If it's not horror, and if it is horror, then there's gonna be a lot of that too. But yeah, no, I'm just impressed. I think that's awesome. That'd be cool if you had that. But like you said, it takes forever. That's the fun part. You say I finished the book, but I mean we don't know what stage you're in. There's still all the editing and the
Yes,
cover
finish.
design and all the other stuff. So
So finish the book means I got the first draft.
right. So
And
yeah,
so yeah, and normally after a first draft, I normally take maybe about a few days to a week off to just kind of clear my head so I can see it, freely.
mhm.
And then the first go round is kind of going like, let's fix this phrase, let's change this, process. I may go through it like 2, 3, 4, 5 times before I've actually like, it's done. It's never done to me. It's like, my books now, when I get towards the end and read them again, I'm like, oh my God, I could have put this in there. I could have put that in
Yeah,
there. So
I
it's
totally
never
get
really
that.
done, you
Yeah, I
know?
totally get that. Um, so yeah, a question we like to ask everybody is when you're writing, is there any specific music that you listen to, or is there a certain thing you need to have going on while you're writing?
So, being that I'm a real movie buff, I listen to a lot of movie soundtracks. I really do. I just have them playing in the background. I noticed that I'm more creative whenever a movie soundtrack is, especially if I have to get into a certain mood. Like if it's a scene, for example, that takes place in a club, I like to maybe listen to some instrumental club music or something from a movie, take it from there. I remember I wrote this script a long time ago. It was about a rock band that somebody had wanted me to write for them. And for that, what I did was I listened to like Purple Rain all the time that I was writing because I just wanted to kind of get that flow of that type of character. So normally it's movie soundtracks or TV show soundtracks or just soundtracks in general. That anything that normally, now that was a special case where I listened to the actual Prince and Purple Rain, but
Hmm.
mostly it's instrumental stuff.
Oh, I'm 100% with you. I listen. That's what majority of anything I'm writing is to a movie score, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe a compilation. There are a couple people that they do the scores that sound just like a big movie score, but it's just
Mm-hmm.
themed. I can't think of any of the names, but it's all on YouTube, and you can listen to like 4 hours of it in a row or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, like I'll listen to the Dark Knight score, and
Me too.
just like you said, sometimes you just want that. Hey, I'm thinking it like I just finished a Western. All I listened to was spaghetti Western scores the entire
Mm-hmm.
time I was doing that, just to kind of have that feel in my head as I was going through it. I don't,
Yeah,
and
anything with Hans Zimmer, any score that
yeah,
Hans Zimmer has
oh yeah,
written, that is in my playlist because I can just go by the emotions. Anything like you
hmm
said with the Dark Knight, Man of Steel, Crimson Tide,
uh,
all those movies,
Gladiator. I think you
Gladiator,
did
yes.
Gladiator. I love Gladiator. I've written 2 or 3 books to that. So, and then
Mm-hmm.
I'll do Lord of the Rings, of course, because those are really good scores. And I love the animated score of the animated Lord of the Rings score. I love that. I
Mm-hmm.
think because that one hits almost every note I'm looking for in a story. And I have seen that over and over again. So as I'm listening, I know exactly what I'm supposed to be seeing and the emotion, and you can translate it to your story as you're doing it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, every once in a while, if I need, I'll listen to something with words, but mostly it's got to be just instrumental. I'm totally with you
It
there.
has to be that just
Yeah.
because they wrote it to basically push emotion out of you. And so that because they did that, it helps you basically get to that character, that emotional flow. So yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
That's awesome. So you said that you were going to have some that you highlight more than others. Are there any books that you want to tell us about for that you're going to have at the event, or anything that you want to highlight specifically?
So I'm definitely going to have the Between Wives book. That's going to be front and center because, like I said, that's my latest release.
Hmm.
I'm probably going to have a few of the sci-fi copies as well, a couple of series, and see if those take flight. I think it's a good story, and it's not as because when I described it as Final Fantasy versus Game of Thrones, it's not as gory as Game of Thrones, but it's just as far as you don't know who can be killed at any given time.
Hmm.
And then the follow up book is just a fun adventure. It takes place on multiple planets. There's actually 2 characters that fall in love. It's a really one that I'm proud of. And I think I've gotten better writing since that first book to the second book. So you will probably see the increase in that. And then I have one other book that'll probably be shown there. It's called The Life Within. And that book takes place right at the beginning of a zombie apocalypse. It's probably like maybe about a few weeks after everything just started to go down and
Hmm.
exploding. And so you have it's so what I like to do, just to kind of throw this out here, I like to put a different story type in a different situation. So, for example, I wanted to write a love story. So I'm like, so what can I do? Where can I put this love story? Why not put it in a zombie apocalypse?
Right.
And that's what I did. I took that love story and I put it as a zombie apocalypse. The ending is very crazy. It's like the first thing I'll see when people read the book, they'll say, "Oh my God, that ending!" So you hit it when people are
Right.
just
Yeah.
like stunned
Nothing
by
better
it.
than
So
having people talk about the ending. So yeah, I'm totally
yeah,
with you on that. That's great.
so that'll probably be what I'll be mainly focused on. I'll probably have all of my titles there, but just on display to
Oh,
be
for
those main
sure. Yeah,
ones.
for sure. Yeah, and then I've noticed because I just did scares and we did Textothicon last year. Science fiction, fantasy, and horror. Most of us all read the same. We all like even the horror people like science fiction and fantasy,
Hmm.
and those both sound amazing. So I think people, and there'll be a big zombie crowd there. So everybody's always looking for unique takes on zombie literature because
Hmm.
everybody loves a good zombie story. So that's pretty cool.
Oh yeah.
Um, so other than the AuthorCon, where can people find your stuff?
Well, I have my website. It's www.enigmakidd.com, and that's
And we'll have
www.
I was just say we'll have all the links below. So you don't,
Okay,
so
okay,
yeah. So
yeah.
we'll make
So
sure
yeah,
everybody
just
can click to you.
okay. So and it's two D's. I was about to say yeah, kidd.com.
Gotcha.
So I'm there. I do have one of my books in a bookstore out in Fort Worth. The Doc's shop has my book 13, but it's more of a young adult themed book. So I have that one out there.
And
But yeah,
I
mainly
was
on
gonna
my.
say I'll bring that up too. We had young adults at the event last year, so if you
Mhm.
have young adult literature, think, stories for them, definitely something to highlight because we had some kids that were unable to get stuff because we didn't have a ton of authors with young adult stuff. So that's awesome to hear that you even have that
It'll
too.
be on this.
I
Yeah,
know,
it'll be
man. That
on
sounds like
display.
you've got just about everything. This is great.
Yeah, yeah, and the reason is because, like I said, I want to fit into different genres, fit into
Hmm.
different places. So when I saw that this one, I know was mainly based on horror and fantasy, I said, okay, I got a couple things that can kind of work with that. So I can always, change it up the style to whatever fits the needs of the actual event. So that's
Yeah, that's
the
awesome.
beautiful thing about it.
Okay, so I interrupted you. So you have that one book at the bookstore. You have your
Mm-hmm.
website.
Mm-hmm.
Where else can we find your stuff?
Pretty much that's it right now. I'm trying to this year. I said I was going to get out to more events and to do more things like this to really get my name out there. Because if it was just about the writing, that's easy for me. Writing is easy. People don't realize that that's the easy part. Actually, getting it out to the public is the part that's the
Mhm.
real struggle. So I'm trying to get into a couple of other bookstores here shortly, but for right now, that one bookstore has that book. My website, it's always there. Of course, Amazon, social media, I'm available there. I also do podcasts too, dealing with different movie reviews and stuff like that,
Oh,
and
awesome. What
also the author podcast too. Mhm.
I was gonna say, what's the podcast for the movie? What's it called?
The podcast for that one is Past and Present. And what it started out to be is one of the things I noticed, at least I'm sure you probably have too. When you watch a movie from your childhood, it's totally different.
Yeah.
And I was sure the Facebook meme that used to always come up is like for Home Alone, you
Yeah, I
used
was
to
just
watch it
thinking
and
that.
enjoy, and then now when you watch it as an adult, you're like, goodness, how much was that house? Things
Yeah.
like that. And so it started off being that like I'll look at old movies, kind of talk about what I thought about it in the past, and then talk about what I think about it now. But I also do updated movie reviews as well, TV shows as well. So I'm going to be, Guardians of the Galaxy is coming out next week, so I'll
Yeah.
have a podcast for that. Mandalorian just ended, so I gave my thoughts on the Mandalorian. That one will be posted next week. So yeah, I try to do updated stuff and also take it a blast in the past. So
That's awesome. Is it on YouTube or
Spotify.
Spotify? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. So we'll put a link for that down there too. People need to go check that out. That's awesome. I love listening to those old, people that are looking at the older stuff, but with new, fresh eyes. Donna and I
Mm-hmm.
kind of do that on here. We read books that we either should have read that were groundwork for why horror is popular, or books that we
Mm-hmm.
read when we ages ago and we're rereading them, and we do that. And then we
Mm-hmm.
follow up with a movie, and then half the time it's like I don't understand why we thought any of this was good. We just have really
Mm-hmm.
fond thoughts of everything. So,
Yeah.
yeah, no, that's awesome. I think that's really cool. Um, so well, let's talk about that. We have a couple more minutes, so let's throw that out there. I know you're not a big horror guy, but let's what would be some of the movies that you like? Are you a big comic guy? I mean, what's like your favorite comic movie?
That's hard.
I
No.
know, right? That's a terrible
Favorite,
one.
yeah, favorite comic book movie. I mean, as
Well,
you
what's
see, I have the Dark Knight up
right?
there. That's definitely one of them.
Well, are you more
Really
DC
low
or Marvel?
on DC. Even
DC.
though I know Marvel
Yeah.
is kicking our butts right now, and I get that, but I am a DC person. But
Yeah.
I have to say, probably my favorite comic book movie, if I had to choose one, would be Logan. and I just thought it was just a perfect way to send that character off.
Yeah,
I know they're talking about he's coming back now for Deadpool, but
which is
just to
fine.
send. Yeah, yeah, I'm fine with that. Oh, trust
Yeah,
me. I think he's an excellent actor. But I think Logan, just the way it was, the F rating, I mean the R rating, so he could say drop the F bomb in there,
mhm.
it'd be a little more vicious and gory. That's what I liked. I would say that's probably be my favorite movie of all time.
Yeah, it's really and it's done really well. I mean, it's got
Mm-hmm,
that. I mean, it's an outside the box kind of movie that kind
mm-hmm,
of pushed it. I think it kind of helped Marvel continue to push the envelope with some
mm-hmm.
of the stuff that they were doing, and I wonder if we didn't have Logan, if we wouldn't have had a quicker drop off with the Marvel Universe movies. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it was just one of those things that showed that a R-rated movie can work.
Yeah,
And a lot of people like us, we grew up off this stuff. So, I understand they got to do the things for the toy sales and the kids and all that. But for us adults, we need more peacemakers. We need more stuff just for us. And I
yeah.
thought Logan was that, at the time. And I think it really allowed all those movies to come out like that.
Yeah, for sure. I really, yeah, and then of course, Nolan's trilogies is
Oh, yeah.
spectacular. Although I really enjoyed Patterson. I liked
Oh,
that.
yeah.
I liked him. I mean,
Yeah.
every time anybody has a complaint about a Batman character, an actor playing Batman coming out, they almost always stick the landing because everybody
Mm-hmm.
wants to do it right.
Yeah.
Rarely. I think Clooney's the only one that didn't. And that's
Yeah.
I don't.
Clooney, he was
I don't
terrible.
think that's his fault as much as it was the direction they allowed that
Mm-hmm.
franchise to
Mm-hmm.
go. But yeah, no,
It almost killed the Batman.
yeah, I know, right? It took a long time before they would even think about doing it. And then of course
Mhm.
Nolan comes out with just an amazing three
Yes.
movies.
Yes.
So yeah, I think that's tough because I throw that question at you and I'm like, name your favorite. I don't know if I could name a favorite because there's so many different reasons why I love so many of these movies. I'm a big
Yeah.
Marvel guy, but I I used to work in a comic store. I've grown up on
Mhm.
comics. Comics are my thing. So I
Mhm.
appreciate and love a lot of the things that DC did and are
Mhm.
trying to do. That's why I'm so disappointed with the direction DC's gone. The
Yeah.
fact that they haven't had a direction really, and we keep
Mhm.
going all over the place. Because I enjoyed Snyderverse. I think Ben Affleck as old Batman is amazing. But
I
I
like
like
them.
Patterson. So
Mhm.
I just wish they would pick a direction and go. And I'm not sure James Gunn's the right direction. I'm not sure if him being the guy in charge is a good idea, but we'll see.
Yeah, because I think he may do okay because he seems to be more edgier and
Hmm.
willing to take and push the limit. And I appreciate that between the Suicide Squad that he did, the Peacemaker series, Guardians of the Galaxy. Took some characters because I didn't know anything about the Guardians of the Galaxy until this, and I enjoyed them the most for the most part.
Yeah, I'm a big
So
fan of Rocket.
I'm interested to see where he's going to take it. If he's going to keep pushing that edge and pushing that, I will give him a shot. But yeah, they do need to get some sort of direction because I think what they were trying to do was catch up with Marvel
Hmm.
real quick, which is why they threw out the Justice League real quick, which wasn't earned at the time. And
Right.
so I think now that they have some sort of a plan, maybe it'll work. I mean, I'm definitely excited to see this Flash movie when it drops. It's been hyped up, and just to
Yeah.
see Keaton back as Batman is just going to be awesome. I just want to see the direction they're going with that. But yeah, it's probably going to reboot everything, and then we'll see what goes from there.
Yeah, I am interested in seeing this new movie, even though I don't know if it's going to actually, I don't, who knows what it'll tie into or how they'll do it. But
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
yeah, anything to see Keaton play Batman again is worth, $10 or whatever it's going to cost to go see it. So yeah, I agree with you there. I think that's pretty interesting. My biggest problem is, is I don't know if Gunn doesn't know how not to be um, edgy. So, you know what I
Okay.
mean? So I
I
wonder
can
if
respect
everything's going to
that.
be over the top and he needs
Yeah.
to pull back on some of these, we need
Mm-hmm.
a more classic Superman. Although I loved Henry Cavill or whatever as Superman. I think he looks the part
He was perfect.
and
Yeah.
I just don't like, or I just thought that they went with an edgier, darker storyline, which turned a lot of people off. Personally, I'm a Batman guy, so I always like it darker. But
Mm-hmm.
you do need bright and sunny with Superman. And you didn't get
Mhm.
that with Snyder. So I understand it, but I say, why get rid of that guy? He's perfect as Superman. I will tell you this
Yeah.
though. Gunn is 1,000 times better as the guy in charge than The Rock would be, because he doesn't take any chances and everything would be
Hmm.
pretty vanilla. So
Hmm.
yeah, I
So
think that would
yeah,
be
I mean,
cool.
I think that's perfect. The perfect description of it. You know, Superman. I did like Man of Steel. I know a lot of people were
Oh,
turned
I
off
loved it.
by it.
Yeah.
I love Man of Steel, and the movie that's controversial that people didn't like was Batman versus Superman. For some reason, I love that movie. I went to the theater 3 times to see it, just to see that Batman warehouse scene, which I think was probably the best depiction of Batman
Yeah.
that we had. Just that fight scene. You finally get to see him fight like you've seen him in the comics, on the animated series,
Hmm.
things like that. So just that one scene alone just made me love the movie. Did it have its flaws? Of course, but
Yeah.
that scene right there was perfect.
What I tell people that say they didn't like Batman versus Superman is that they need to take the time and invest in the director's cut. You're going to get
Mm-hmm.
30, 40 more minutes,
Yes.
and
Yes.
it's a much better movie, because
Mm-hmm.
the stuff they chose to cut out for the theatrical makes no sense and leaves you
Mm-hmm.
thinking it's not a great movie, especially for people that aren't fans. And that's who you needed. But they, of course, then their argument would be, well, we couldn't force these non-fans to sit in the theater for that long of a period of time. But if you watch the director's cut, you will come away, I think, thinking that that's a much better movie, and maybe the best movie in the entire thing. I enjoyed Snyder versus Justice League when they redid it for HBO,
Oh, I did
but
too. I loved it. I thought it
yeah,
was a masterpiece. It was
you could
like,
see, yeah, you
yeah,
could
you could
definitely
see the
tell.
difference.
Yeah,
And you could tell that, there was no jokey Batman. He was more serious, like the character. It was just totally done well. It was just one of those movies I was like, man, it's 4 hours long. So, like, halfway in, okay, I was watching with the family. All right, bathroom break. Come on, let's go run the bathroom
yeah.
and come back. All right, let's finish this. But yeah, it was a great picture when he put it together. I loved it.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, everybody. So we are unfortunately coming to the end of this interview, and I just want to remind everybody that you're going to head out to Texas AuthorCon. It's going to be July 14th and 15th, Friday and Saturday event. It's a free event. Link will be down below. You can sign up for an entry for hourly gift prizes that we're giving away, but you have to sign up to get those. So, and then make sure you stop by all the tables. This event's grown in 1 year. It's going to be a fun event, and this is an example right here. Our discussion today tells you and shows you that we are going to have a plethora of amazing authors and books to look at. So head over, check out all the tables, and find a new favorite author, or stock up on all your stuff that, whatever your favorite author is already bringing, so stock up and meet everybody. There'll be panels and everything else. So it'll be a fun 2-day event. And I just want to say thanks for jumping on.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me. And again, I'll be on one of those panels talking about the post-apocalyptic thing,
Oh, awesome.
because that's, yeah. So one of my books is dealing with that, so I figured I might as well jump on that panel. So I believe that one's on Friday. So I'll see
Okay.
you there if you're there then.
Awesome. Yeah, everybody take it easy.